He wasn't just another guitarist. He was a comet burning electric blue across the night sky of rock and roll. Ace Frehley didn't just play the guitar, he launched it into orbit. Every riff, every solo sounded like it came from another world. But behind the makeup, behind the lightning bolts, was a man constantly chasing freedom, sound, and identity. This is the story of the Spaceman, the boy from the Bronx who rewrote rock history, and the echoes he left behind in the universe of music. Paul Daniel Frehley was born on April 27, 1951, in the Bronx, New York neighborhood that pulsed with rhythm and danger in equal measure. His father was a musician, his mother a homemaker. Together, they gave him curiosity and chaos. By the time Ace picked up his first guitar at 13, the streets outside were filled with doo-wop, Motown, and the early rumble of rock. But Ace wasn't interested in blending in. He was dreaming in distortion. He taught himself chords by ear, bending notes until they screamed. He didn't have lessons, he had obsession. He practiced until his fingers bled, then played through the pain because the sound felt like freedom. He wasn't the best student, but he had something school couldn't teach swagger. He painted lightning bolts on his boots before he ever wore them on his face. By his late teens, he was already moving through New York's underground clubs, seen loud, reckless, magnetic. And that magnetism would soon pull him into one of the most explosive bands the world would ever know. In 1972, a young band in New York put out an ad, "Lead guitarist wanted. Flash and balls are essential." Ace walked in wearing mismatched shoes, carrying a guitar case covered in stars. He plugged in, hit one power chord, and the walls shook. Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons exchanged a look they'd found their missing piece. That day, Paul Frehley became Ace Frehley when the band created their alter egos. The Demon, the Star Child, the Catman, and the Spaceman. Ace's persona was more than a costume. It was prophecy. He was the embodiment of outer space energy, the cosmic traveler lost somewhere between distortion and stardust. By 1974, Kiss was conquering stages with fire, smoke, and thunder. But when Ace hit his solo in Shock Mayhe's guitar, literally smoking as he played, audiences saw something more than theatrics. They saw a man channeling electricity like a conduit of chaos and beauty. His tone was unique, sharp but melodic, wild yet precise. He was never the cleanest player, but he was always the most alive. As Kiss grew into a global phenomenon, Ace became the band's heartbeat. Songs like Cold Gin, Parasite, and Strange Ways were his fingerprints, gritty, dangerous, raw. He brought street energy to glam spectacle. And while others wore the armor of fame, Ace played like a kid who still believed music could save him. By the late 1970s, Kiss wasn't just a band, it was a religion. Merchandise, dolls, comic books, stadiums full of screaming fans. But the bigger the empire grew, the smaller Ace felt inside it. Creative control belonged to management. The music was turning into marketing. And the man who once thrived on freedom began to feel trapped in a machine of his own making. The world saw lights, fame, and fireworks. Ace saw the inside of hotel rooms, endless tours, and the numbing pull of excess. Alcohol became his companion, sometimes his enemy. He started missing flights, missing rehearsals, missing pieces of himself. But every time he stepped on stage, he still found that connection, the sound that reminded him why he started. When the intro to Detroit Rock City hit and the lights went blue, the Spaceman came alive again. For those few minutes, he was untouchable. In 1978, Kiss released 4 solo albums, one for each member. Ace's album shocked everyone. It was the best-selling and most critically praised of the 4. Songs like New York Groove captured everything that made him special: swagger, humor, melody, and that unmistakable Bronx bite. He had proven that he wasn't just part of Kiss, was a force on his own. But success only deepened the rift. Fame had made him a star. It had also made him lonely. In 1982, he left Kiss behind, walking away from the machine to chase his own orbit. Freedom came with turbulence. The 1980s were wild, loud, and cruel. Ace Frehley's Comet launched him back into the rock scene with songs like Rock Soldiers and Into the Night. His guitar tone was heavier, his voice rougher, his spirit still defiant. But the same self-destructive habits followed him. The very thing that fueled his creativity, reckless abandon, was also eating him alive. Still, Ace never stopped evolving. He experimented with new gear, new sounds, even custom-built guitars that emitted smoke and lasers. He wasn't chasing trends, he was chasing adrenaline. To watch him play live was to watch chaos turn into art. Critics often dismissed him as the wild one or the unreliable one, but to fans and younger musicians, he was something else entirely authentic. He wasn't pretending to be perfect. He was real, flawed, electric. In a decade of polished pop and artificial shine, Ace remained raw. That rawness became his legacy. Ask any guitarist from the generations that followed, and they'll tell you the truth. Ace Frehley was the first guitar hero who felt human. Slash once said that Ace made him want to pick up the guitar. Dimebag Darrell cited him as one of his earliest inspirations. Even members of Metallica admitted that Kiss Alive was the record that made them dream of the stage. Ace had a signature style, a blend of blues roots and cosmic flair. He could make 3 notes sound like the end of the world. He wasn't a technician, he was a storyteller. Every solo had emotion, humor, and personality. He knew when to be fast and, more importantly, when to be slow. That's why his sound last night wasn't about speed, it was about feel. Beyond technique, his influence was visual. The Spaceman costume, the silver suit, the smoking Les Paul redefined what a guitarist could look like. He turned playing into theater, but without losing soul. In every smoky bar, every garage rehearsal, someone was trying to play Shock Me And. In that attempt, Ace Frehley lived on. The 1990s brought reflection. Ace struggled publicly with addiction and isolation, but he also began rebuilding. He reconnected with fans, released new material, and slowly reclaimed his place as a living legend. When Kiss reunited in 1996 for the Alive Worldwide Tour, it felt like the galaxy had aligned again. The original 4 back in their makeup, back in their myth. The shows were massive. Fans who had grown up with posters on their walls brought their kids to see the real thing. For Ace, it was redemption, a chance to relive the magic without losing himself this time. He played like a man who had seen the darkness and learned to light his own path through it. But, as always, the balance between art and ego proved fragile. After several years, he once again parted ways with Kiss. This time, though, he left with peace, not bitterness. He understood something most never do. That legends aren't defined by the bands they leave, but by the music they leave behind. In the decades that followed, Ace became something rarely a survivor. While others faded or self-destructed, he stayed active, creative, and honest. His solo albums, Anomaly, Space Invader, Spaceman proved that his fire still burned bright. His riffs were heavier, his voice older, his perspective wiser. He began speaking openly about his struggles, turning pain into purpose. At conventions, interviews, and intimate shows, fans lined up not just to meet a hero, but to thank him for being real, for showing them that imperfection can still create greatness. He laughed more, talked more softly, and seemed finally comfortable being both Ace Frehley and Paul Frehley's Spaceman and the Man. In his late years, Ace became reflective. He talked about spirituality, about energy, about how music is its own kind of universe. He said once, "I always felt like I was born on another planet. Maybe that's why I never fit in down here." And maybe he was right, because his sound still doesn't quite belong to Earth. Ace Frehley's legacy is not just in his solos or his makeup. It's in the kids who pick up guitars, feeling that same fire he felt in the Bronx. It's in every artist who learned that you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. It's in every dreamer who knows that sometimes the best way to find yourself is to get lost in the noise. He turned guitar solos into space voyages. He taught us that energy is louder than technique, that emotion is stronger than perfection. He showed us that even a kid from a rough neighborhood can become a cosmic icon if he believes in his sound. Today, when his riffs echo through arenas or headphones, they still carry that same message. Be yourself loudly, imperfectly, unapologetically. Because that's what Ace Frehley did, and that's what made him immortal. When the last note fades and the stage goes dark, the Spaceman doesn't disappear. He lingers in reverb, in memory, in every fan's heart that ever screamed his name. He may have worn silver paint, but his story was written in blood, sweat, and distortion. He made mistakes, he fell, he rose, and through it all, he played. And maybe that's the truest definition of rock and roll. Not the fame, not the money, but the refusal to stop. Ace Frehley turned 6 strings into a universe. He didn't just join, Kishe gave it its pulse. He didn't just play guitar, he built a galaxy out of sound. And somewhere out there in the endless night sky of rock, his echo still drifts loud, fearless, eternal. The Spaceman never really came down. He just went home. And if this tribute resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to celebrate the legends of rock. Share this story with fellow fans and keep the music alive.